In Cordoba, there is a crucifix that hides a secret capable of changing lives. Many have seen it, but few truly understand the power it holds. Imagine looking at a symbol of faith and feeling something transformative, a direct intervention from Christ in your life. This isn't just a simple legend, but a testimony of spiritual power that transcends time. The crucifix, with its hand pointing downward, doesn't just question. It challenges all who approach it to reflect on God's forgiveness, a forgiveness that liberates, heals, and transforms. What happens when you finally understand this message? The answer could be the key to a life of peace and renewal. In Cordoba, there is a crucifix that, at first glance, seems like just another symbol of faith, but it holds a mystery that captivates and fascinates all who look at it. This crucifix is unique not only for its history but also for how it presents itself. Christ's hand points downwards. This is unusual in traditional representations, where the hands are often open or extended, symbolizing a gesture of welcome. The posture of this hand, pointing to the ground, provokes curiosity, and many visitors, before understanding the context, wonder what this means. The feeling this crucifix evokes is one of deep serenity, but also of great spiritual challenge. And don't be fooled, this isn't just a simple visual curiosity. When we look at this crucifix, we're confronted with powerful symbolism. It's not just an object, it's an invitation for deep reflection on our own lives. Who are we before God? What have we done with our faith? The hand pointing downwards challenges us to look into the depths of our soul, reminding us that, as much as we come near the church, the true test of faith lies in our daily conduct, in our actions. Every visitor who approaches this crucifix feels a weight, a presence, a sense that something beyond the physical is happening. So, this crucifix isn't just a work of art or any relic. It is a symbol that faith goes far beyond what the eyes can see. In Bible studies, we learn that often God's signs are before us, disguised as everyday situations, but the challenge lies in recognizing them. When the hand points downward, the call for reflection and repentance is clear. Now, imagine the impact this gesture will have on a sinner who seeks true renewal through forgiveness. This will be the next step in their spiritual journey. The story of the miraculous crucifix in Cordoba begins with a man who, carrying the weight of his sins on his chest, sought forgiveness countless times. This man, known in the town as a true sinner, had tried many times to reconcile with God, but the feeling of guilt never seemed to ease. He attended services and prayers, tried to change his behavior, but something within him still didn't feel right. His soul felt distant, as if something inside kept him separated from the grace of Christ. But, unlike many who would have given up, he persisted, believing there was still hope. Then, one summer afternoon, while contemplating the crucifix in the chapel of Cordoba, something supernatural occurred. The hand of Christ, which had always pointed downwards, slowly began to move. The sinner, staring intently at the gesture, felt as though the heavens were opening to him. Forgiveness, which had seemed distant and unattainable, was now within reach. He felt an indescribable peace flood his being, and it was as if a huge burden had been lifted from his shoulders. In that moment, he didn't just witness the miracle, but felt it in every fiber of his body. This miracle wasn't just an extraordinary event, it was a call to transformation. The legend of the sinner isn't just about an ordinary man receiving divine forgiveness. It's about all of us, in our failures, who tirelessly seek Christ's mercy. Many of us feel distant, helpless, as if our faith is insufficient. But what this story teaches us is that, no matter how far we've gone, the grace of Christ never fails to reach us. Now, the question arises, what happens when we finally receive this divine intervention? That's what we will see next. The great surprise came when, before the eyes of the sinner and all those present, Christ's hand moved. The gesture was simple, yet imbued with immense spiritual depth. As if, for the first time, God's mercy had manifested in a tangible and visible way. That hand, which had previously pointed downward as a symbol of judgment, was now lowering, inviting the sinner to come closer, as if saying, "Come, you are forgiven." The priest, who was there as an observer, could hardly believe what he was seeing. He, who was familiar with the sermons about Christ's forgiveness and mercy, was surprised by the power of such a personal and real intervention. The moment when Christ's hand moved was marked by absolute silence. It was as if the entire chapel was suspended in time, waiting for everyone present to feel the same transformation that the sinner was experiencing. That divine intervention wasn't just an act of mercy, it was an invitation to spiritual renewal for all present. The eyes began to turn toward the crucifix, and the feeling of reverence spread quickly. God's presence was palpable, and everyone there, sinner or not, was touched by the depth of that moment. This divine intervention wasn't just an isolated miracle, but a call for everyone to reflect on their own lives. As in many cases in the Bible, miracles aren't just signs, but instructions. Christ's hand lowering before the sinner wasn't just a demonstration of forgiveness. It was also a lesson about how God's grace operates in ways that challenge our human understanding. When divine forgiveness manifests, it doesn't just cleanse the past, but opens doors for true and lasting transformation. And this transformation isn't limited only to the sinner, but to all who seek change. What comes after this deep and transformative forgiveness? Let's find out in the next step of this journey of faith. The figure of the crucifix and Christ's gesture in moving his hand are powerful representations of divine forgiveness. Christ's mercy knows no bounds, and the act of lowering his hand is a clear metaphor that, no matter how far man may stray, God is always ready to reach out and bring us back. Christ's forgiveness doesn't require perfection or perfect words, but a contrite heart willing to receive his grace. The sinner, upon seeing Christ's hand lower, finally understood that this wasn't about merit, but about unconditional love. There is no sin too great that Christ's mercy cannot erase. He, who died for all of us, is always willing to forgive, no matter our failings. This gesture of forgiveness reflects what is often preached in sermons and in the Bible, but seldom truly understood. Forgiveness is not only an act of God, but also a tool for transformation. When we receive divine forgiveness, we begin to see the opportunities for forgiveness that we must extend to others. It's not easy, and often feels counterintuitive, but as we reflect on the greatness of Christ's mercy, we realize that our forgiveness of others is not a favor, but a reflection of the grace we've received. For example, if someone in your life has caused you pain, look at the crucifix and ask yourself, how Christ forgave me, can I forgive as well? This is one of the greatest challenges of a Christian, recognizing that Christ's forgiveness is a model to be followed in our lives. It's easy to talk about forgiveness when we are on the side of the one offering it, but when we are challenged to forgive those who have hurt us, that's when true faith is tested. This act of forgiveness is not just about others, but about ourselves. Forgiveness is a path to freedom, a chance to experience the peace that only true forgiveness can bring. And this transformation only truly happens when we accept Christ's mercy and apply it in our own lives. But what will be the impact of this grace on the lives of those who visit this sacred place seeking solace and forgiveness? That is the next step in this reflection. The spiritual transformation that occurs with visitors to the chapel in Córdoba is remarkable. Many arrive at the chapel burdened with doubts, pain, and guilt, with heavy hearts seeking something that will help them find a new way. The impact of the crucifix, with its powerful message of forgiveness, goes beyond just contemplating a religious work of art. It is a meeting point between the human and the divine, a place where broken souls can find relief. Those who approach the crucifix, seeking healing for their spiritual wounds, do not leave empty-handed. Christ's gesture and the presence of that symbol are often enough to bring unexpected comfort, as if Christ himself were there, offering his forgiveness and restoring peace in the heart of each person. What's interesting is that this transformation doesn't happen immediately, but gradually. Some pilgrims report that after their visit, an internal process of change begins to happen. Something in their lives starts to make more sense. A new faith is awakened. Prayer becomes more sincere, Bible study deeper, and worship, once a routine, now becomes a moment of true adoration. They feel that the spirituality that once seemed distant and vague is now more present and concrete in their lives. And this is not just an external change, but an internal renewal. It is Christ's very presence touching hearts, inviting visitors to follow a new path, a path of faith, forgiveness, and mercy. This spiritual transformation is not limited only to those who are there seeking forgiveness, but also to those who already have established faith. Often, our faith needs to be revived. It must go through a process of renewal. The crucifix in Córdoba, with its symbolic gesture of forgiveness, has the power to rekindle the flame of faith in weary and discouraged hearts. This leads us to reflect on the impact this symbol has not only on individuals but on the surrounding community. After all, when people experience true transformation, it is not confined to them but spreads to those around them, creating an environment of spiritual renewal. How does this influence the local community? This will be explored next. The impact of the miraculous crucifix goes beyond its individual visits. It begins to reverberate deeply within the local community. What starts as a personal experience of transformation spreads like a wave, touching the lives of all those around. Slowly, the city of Córdoba found itself immersed in a collective spiritual renewal. Those who received the grace of forgiveness began reflecting this change in their daily attitudes, in the way they related to others, and, most importantly, in how they engaged in community life. Acts of charity, once timid, began to bloom. People who were previously distant from the church now approached, seeking the same peace others had found. This change was not limited to external gestures. It wasn't just about participating more actively in worship or doing more charity work. The real impact was seen in the reconciliations that took place within families and between friends. Forgiveness, both received and offered, began to eliminate old divisions and unhealed wounds. We see that the power of Christ's mercy not only heals the individual but reconciles the community. Like a stone thrown into water, the effects of the crucifix's spiritual transformation spread, touching all who come into contact with it. The very concept of faith began to be seen in a new light, no longer something isolated, but a means of strengthening and uniting the body of Christ, the Church. And this unity was reflected in concrete actions, not just words. People began to participate more actively in community initiatives, focused on helping the needy, promoting peace and harmony. We then see how faith can be transformative not only in the individual but in an entire society. And this ongoing change makes us reflect on the power of forgiveness and how it can alter the course of our lives, not only on a personal level but also collectively. Now the question arises: how will this transformative power of forgiveness impact the lives of people from different backgrounds and needs? Let us explore the next chapter of this journey. The transformative power of forgiveness, emanating from the crucifix of Córdoba, is not confined to a single story. It extends to people of diverse experiences and realities. Each person who encounters the crucifix undergoes a unique and profound transformation. A scholar, for instance, arrives at the chapel with a rational and logical mind, yet upon observing Christ's gesture, feels an internal shift. His intellectual doubts, which had prevented him from fully believing in the power of forgiveness, begin to crumble. Christ's forgiveness, simple yet profound, unveils a truth that no book could convey, the reality of divine love. This moment of intellectual clarity opens his spirit, transforming him from a skeptic to someone touched by divine grace. Similarly, a soldier, whose past is scarred by wars and violence, approaches with a hardened heart. He seeks something more, something to reclaim the humanity he felt he lost in years of conflict. As he gazes upon the crucifix and notices Christ's gesture, he experiences profound repentance. This unconditional divine forgiveness penetrates his heart in an unforeseen and radical way. For the first time in years, he feels the peace of Christ. This forgiveness not only frees him from his past but propels him toward a new path, a life marked by compassion and understanding. These stories of transformation are neither rare nor exceptional. They reflect what can happen to anyone who accepts the truth of Christ's forgiveness. Whether one carries a soul weary with doubt or a heart burdened by deep sins, Divine forgiveness works uniquely and personally. Christ's power is boundless, and no one is beyond his reach. This prompts us to consider, what impact does forgiveness have on us, and how can we allow it to transform us? More importantly, how can we embody and witness this transformative power every day? These questions lead us to the legacy of this crucifix and its enduring significance. The legacy of the Crucifix of Córdoba extends far beyond its physical presence in the chapel. Over time, it becomes a symbol of forgiveness, hope, and transformation. Visitors who experience renewal in its presence carry that transformation with them. The crucifix, with its clear and powerful message, continues to draw those seeking not just a religious experience but profound and real change in their lives. It becomes not just a historical relic but a constant point of connection with Christ's mercy. Its presence keeps the flame of faith alive, especially during times of hardship and uncertainty. Devotion to the Crucifix of Córdoba does not end with pilgrimages. It grows and spreads. Those touched by Christ's grace before this sacred symbol continue to share their testimonies, passing the message on to others in need of renewed hope. Families begin incorporating the symbol into their homes as a constant reminder that, no matter the circumstances, Christ's forgiveness is always available. The message of forgiveness and transformation spreads, reaching communities far beyond those initially familiar with it. Over time, the crucifix becomes a point of reference not just for Córdoba residents but for people from around the world who seek spiritual healing. This legacy extends beyond the chapel walls. It infiltrates daily life, interpersonal relationships, and devotional practices. Continued devotion to the crucifix manifests in a Christian lifestyle that is more committed, faithful, and genuine. The crucifix is not merely a symbol of worship but a call to action. It constantly reminds us that faith is dynamic, a daily practice, and that just as Christ forgives and transforms, we are also called to be instruments of transformation. This enduring impact challenges us to ask, what are we doing to perpetuate the message of forgiveness and hope in our own lives and communities? The central message of the miraculous Crucifix of Córdoba is one of hope and renewal. It is not merely a symbol of suffering but of transformation and new beginnings. As we look upon Christ's gesture, we see that forgiveness is not conditional but available to everyone. No matter how broken a soul may be or how many mistakes have been made, Christ's forgiveness is always within reach for those who seek it. More than this, forgiveness is not an endpoint but a means to true renewal. When we accept this forgiveness, our lives are restored, bringing peace, serenity, and the strength to start anew. Christ offers us more than the chance to be forgiven. He offers us the opportunity to be transformed. When we consider the impact of this forgiveness, we realize it is not a one-time event but one that renews constantly. With every new failure, with every new internal battle, God's grace is renewed within us. As the crucifix symbolizes, Christ's hand is always extended, not to judge but to restore. The key here is acceptance. Accepting Christ's forgiveness is not merely an acknowledgement, it is a daily decision to live in His grace. By doing so, we create space for continuous transformation, guiding us to a fuller life, rich in faith and spirituality. This message of hope and renewal is an invitation for all of us, regardless of where we are in our spiritual journey. Christ's forgiveness is for everyone, for those already walking in faith and for those still lost and searching. The Crucifix of Córdoba is, therefore, a constant reminder that with Christ's grace, we can always start anew. It shows us that no matter how far we have fallen, there is always another chance, always a possibility for transformation. And just as the story of the crucifix continues to touch lives around the world, so too does the endless mercy of Christ.